What happens when two of Hollywood's biggest stars, Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves, get kicked out of an exclusive bar? What they did next wasn't just revenge. It was a moment that changed everything. Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves are more than just Hollywood icons. They're known for their humility, their kindness, and their ability to stay grounded despite their fame. But even the most down-to-earth stars can have their limits. This isn't just a story about a night out. It's about how Johnny and Keanu turned a humiliating moment into something unforgettable. By the end of this video, you'll learn why they were kicked out of one of the most exclusive bars in Los Angeles, how they planned their revenge in the most unexpected way, and how their actions not only shocked the bar staff, but also left a lasting impact on everyone who witnessed it. This is a story you won't want to miss. So, grab a seat and get ready for a tale of fame, humor, and a little bit of payback. Welcome to Story Spot, where we bring you the most fascinating stories from around the world. If you love stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community. Before we talk about the incident that changed everything, let's set the stage. Picture this: a sleek, high-end bar tucked away in the heart of Los Angeles. This isn't your average neighborhood pub. No, this is the kind of place where the velvet ropes are always up and the bouncers are as selective as they come. The kind of bar where you need more than just money to get in. You need status, connections, and maybe even a little bit of luck. The bar's exterior is all glass and neon, with a glowing sign that reads, VIP only. Inside, it's even more exclusive. Plush leather booths, dim lighting, and a champagne menu that costs more than most people's rent. Celebrities, billionaires, and socialites frequent this place, making it one of the most sought-after spots in the city. It's the kind of bar where the staff knows everyone by name, or at least they're supposed to. Now, let's talk about why Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves were there that night. Both stars are known for their low-key lifestyles. Despite their fame, they're not the type to flaunt their wealth or demand special treatment. In fact, they're often spotted in casual settings, enjoying simple pleasures like coffee shops, bookstores, or even fast food joints. But that night, they decided to step into the world of glitz and glamour, not for the spotlight, but for a quiet evening away from it all. Johnny Depp, the eccentric actor known for his iconic roles in Pirates of the Caribbean and Edward Scissorhands, had just wrapped up a long day of filming. Keanu Reeves, the beloved star of The Matrix and John Wick, was in town for a brief break between projects. The two had been friends for years, bonding over their shared love of music, motorcycles, and staying out of the Hollywood drama. That night, they wanted nothing more than to unwind, share a few drinks, and enjoy each other's company. But here's the thing about exclusive bars. They don't always live up to the hype. Sure, they're glamorous, but they can also be pretentious. The staff at this particular bar had a reputation for being strict. Some might even say overly strict. Dress codes were enforced with military precision, and the rules were non-negotiable. Even if you were a regular, one misstep could get you turned away at the door. Johnny and Keanu arrived at the bar dressed casually. Johnny, as always, had his signature bohemian style, a worn-out jacket, a scarf, and his ever-present sunglasses. Keanu, on the other hand, was in his usual understated attire, a simple black jacket, jeans, and a t-shirt. To anyone who knew them, this was just Johnny and Keanu being themselves. But to the bar staff, it was a problem. As they approached the entrance, the bouncer gave him a once-over. "Sorry, gentlemen," he said, his tone polite but firm. "We have a strict dress code here." At first, Johnny and Keanu thought it was a joke. After all, they were two of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood. Surely, the staff knew who they were, but the bouncer didn't budge. "No exceptions," he said, crossing his arms. What happened next was a mix of confusion and disbelief. Johnny, ever the charmer, tried to reason with the bouncer. "Come on, mate," he said with a smile. "We're just here for a drink." Keanu, always a calm one, stayed quiet, letting Johnny do the talking. But the bouncer wasn't having it. "Rules are rules," he repeated. It's worth noting that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened to Johnny and Keanu. Despite their fame, they both had their fair share of run-ins with people who didn't recognize them, or worse, didn't care who they were. Johnny, for instance, once got turned away from a nightclub in London because the bouncer thought he was a homeless person. Keanu, on the other hand, has been mistaken for a random fan more times than he can count. But this time was different. This wasn't just a case of mistaken identity. This was a blatant disregard for who they were, not as celebrities, but as people. The bouncer's attitude was cold, almost dismissive. It was as if he didn't care that he was turning away two of the most respected actors in the industry. For a moment, Johnny and Keanu stood there, unsure of what to do. They could have argued, made a scene, or even pulled the "Do you know who I am?" card. But that's not who they are. Instead, they exchanged a look, shrugged, and walked away. As they left, the bar's neon sign flickered behind them, casting a faint glow on the sidewalk. The night was still young, and the city was alive with possibilities. But for Johnny and Keanu, the evening had taken an unexpected turn. What started as a casual night out had turned into something else entirely. A moment of rejection, a test of character, and, unbeknownst to anyone at the time, the beginning of a story that would soon become the talk of the town. Little did the bar staff know, Johnny and Keanu weren't just walking away. They were planning something. Something that would not only teach the bar a lesson, but also remind the world why they're so beloved. But that's a story for the next part of the video. The moment Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves were kicked out of the exclusive bar wasn't just surprising. It was almost surreal. Here were two of Hollywood's most iconic actors, men whose faces are instantly recognizable to millions around the world, being told they weren't welcome. Despite their fame, the bar staff either didn't recognize them or chose to ignore who they were. And if they did recognize them, it didn't matter. Rules are rules, after all. The exact reason for their ejection has been the subject of much speculation. Some say it was a dress code issue. The bar, known for its strict policies, required patrons to adhere to a certain level of formality. Johnny, with his signature bohemian style, layered scarves, a weathered jacket, and his ever-present sunglasses, didn't exactly fit the mold. Keanu, dressed in his usual understated attire of black jacket and jeans, wasn't much closer to the bar's idea of VIP appropriate. Others claim it was a simple misunderstanding. Perhaps the bouncer was new and didn't recognize the two stars. Or maybe he was having a bad night and decided to take it out on the first people who didn't meet his standards. Whatever the reason, the outcome was the same. Johnny and Keanu were asked to leave. The interaction at the door was brief but tense. Johnny, ever the charmer, tried to reason with the bouncer. "Come on, mate," he said with a smile, his voice calm and friendly. "We're just here for a drink. No trouble, I promise." Keanu, standing quietly beside him, added a polite nod, his demeanor as calm and collected as ever. But the bouncer wasn't swayed. "Sorry, gentlemen," he said, his tone firm and unyielding. "Dress code is dress code. No exceptions." For a moment, there was a pause, a silent standoff between the two stars and the bouncer. Johnny and Keanu exchanged a glance, a wordless conversation passing between them. They could have argued. They could have insisted. They could have even pulled the "Do you know who we are?" card. But that's not who they are. Instead, they did something unexpected. They walked away. Their reaction was as understated as their personalities. There was no shouting, no demands, no attempts to flex their celebrity status. Johnny simply shrugged, a small, bemused smile playing on his lips. Keanu, ever the quiet observer, gave the bouncer a nod, not of anger, but of understanding. And then, without another word, they turned and left. As they walked away from the bar, the neon lights of the city flickering around them, the absurdity of the situation began to sink in. Here they were, two of the most respected and beloved actors in the world, being turned away from a place that prided itself on catering to the elite. It was a moment that could have easily turned into a public spectacle, but Johnny and Keanu chose a different path. They chose humility over pride, grace over anger. But just because they left quietly doesn't mean they were done. In fact, it was quite the opposite. As they strolled down the sidewalk, the cool night air brushing against their faces, an idea began to form. It wasn't about revenge in the traditional sense. It wasn't about getting back at the bar or the bouncer. It was about turning a negative experience into something positive, something unforgettable. Johnny, with his creative mind and love for the unconventional, was the first to suggest it. "What if we throw our own party?" he said, a mischievous glint in his eye. Keanu, always up for a bit of spontaneity, didn't need much convincing. "Let's do it," he replied, his voice calm but filled with quiet determination. And so, the wheels were set in motion. They didn't need a fancy bar or a VIP list to have a good time. They had something better. Their fans. Johnny and Keanu have always had a special connection with their supporters. They're known for their kindness, their generosity, and their willingness to go out of their way to make someone's day. This was their chance to give back in a way that only they could. As they began to plan their impromptu gathering, the energy between them shifted. What had started as a frustrating night was now turning into something exciting, something meaningful. They weren't just planning a party. They were creating a moment, a memory that would last far longer than any night at an exclusive bar ever could. But the best part? The bar had no idea what was coming. As Johnny and Keanu walked away, the bouncer likely thought the incident was over. He had no way of knowing that the two stars he just turned away were about to do something that would not only overshadow his establishment, but also remind the world why Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves are so beloved. Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves are two of the most down-to-earth celebrities in Hollywood. They're known for their humility, their kindness, and their ability to stay grounded despite their fame. But what many people don't realize is that they also have a great sense of humor. They don't take themselves too seriously, and they're always up for a bit of fun, especially when it involves turning a negative situation into something positive. As they walked away from the exclusive bar that night, the initial frustration of being turned away began to fade. Instead of dwelling on the rejection, Johnny and Keanu did what they do best. They laughed it off. "Can you believe that?" Johnny said, shaking his head with a grin. "Kicked out of a bar. Us. Honestly, it's kind of hilarious." Keanu, ever the calm and collected one, chuckled softly. "Yeah," he replied. "But you know what? Maybe it's for the best. That place looked a bit too stuffy anyway." It was in that moment, as they strolled down the dimly lit streets of Los Angeles, that the idea began to take shape. Johnny, with his creative mind and love for the unconventional, was the first to suggest it. "What if we throw our own party?" he said, his eyes lighting up with mischief. "Right here, right now. No dress code, no VIP list, just us, the fans, and a good time." Keanu didn't need much convincing. "I'm in," he said simply, his voice calm but filled with quiet excitement. And just like that, the plan was set in motion. The beauty of their idea was its simplicity. They didn't need a fancy venue or an elaborate setup. All they needed was their charisma, their sense of humor, and their connection with the people who had supported them throughout their careers. Johnny and Keanu have always had a special bond with their fans. They're known for going out of their way to make someone's day, whether it's through a kind word, a photo, or even an impromptu jam session. This was their chance to take that connection to the next level. As they began to plan their impromptu gathering, the energy between them shifted. What had started as a frustrating night was now turning into something exciting, something meaningful. Johnny, with his background in music, suggested they bring along a couple of guitars. "We can play a few songs, maybe even get the crowd to sing along," he said, his enthusiasm contagious. Keanu, always a thoughtful one, added, "And we can invite anyone who wants to join. No exclusivity, no rules, just good vibes." The location was the next piece of the puzzle. They didn't want to go too far from the bar. After all, the irony of throwing a party right outside the place that had rejected them was too good to pass up. They found a small park nearby, complete with benches, streetlights, and just enough space for a crowd to gather. It wasn't glamorous, but that was the point. This wasn't about luxury or status. It was about connection and community. As they set up, Johnny and Keanu couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Here they were, two of the biggest stars in the world, preparing to throw a spontaneous street party. It was the kind of thing that could only happen with them, a perfect blend of humility, humor, and heart. Word of their plans spread quickly. Fans who happened to be in the area started to gather, their excitement growing as they realized what was happening. Social media lit up with posts and photos, and soon enough, the small park was filled with people. Some were die-hard fans who had followed Johnny and Keanu for years. Others were just curious passers-by who couldn't resist the chance to be part of something special. The atmosphere was electric. Johnny and Keanu moved through the crowd, greeting everyone with smiles and handshakes. They posed for photos, signed autographs, and even shared a few stories about their careers. But the highlight of the night was when they picked up their guitars and started to play. Johnny, with his raspy voice and bluesy style, led the way, while Keanu, ever the supportive friend, joined in with harmonies and rhythm. The crowd sang along, their voices blending together in a moment of pure joy. It wasn't just a party. It was a celebration of music, friendship, and the power of turning a negative into a positive. And all the while, just a few blocks away, the exclusive bar stood silent, its velvet ropes and strict dress code feeling more relevant by the minute. What Johnny and Keanu did that night wasn't just revenge. It was a statement. It was a reminder that fame and fortune don't define a person. It's how you treat others and how you handle adversity that truly matters. They didn't need a fancy bar to have a good time. All they needed was each other, their fans, and a shared belief in the power of kindness and humor. But the best part? The night was far from over. As the music played and the crowd grew, Johnny and Keanu knew they had created something unforgettable. And as they looked out at the smiling faces around them, they realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above and creating something amazing. Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves didn't just walk away from the exclusive bar that night. They came back. But this time, they weren't alone. They brought something special with them. An idea, a sense of humor, and a crowd of people who were ready to turn the night into something unforgettable. Their plan was simple yet brilliant. Instead of causing trouble or making a scene, they decided to throw an impromptu party right outside the bar. No velvet ropes, no dress codes, no exclusivity, just good music, good vibes, and good company. It was a kind of spontaneous, heartfelt gesture that only Johnny and Keanu could pull off. As they returned to the bar, the atmosphere shifted. The once quiet street was now buzzing with energy. Johnny had a guitar slung over his shoulder, and Keanu carried a small amplifier. They set up shop just a few feet away from the bar's entrance, close enough to make a statement, but far enough to avoid any direct confrontation. The first few notes from Johnny's guitar were enough to draw attention. His raspy voice filled the air as he launched into a bluesy rendition of one of his favorite songs. Keanu, ever the supportive friend, joined in with harmonies and rhythm, his calm demeanor adding a sense of balance to Johnny's fiery energy. It didn't take long for the crowd to grow. Fans who had been in the area started to gather, their excitement palpable as they realized what was happening. Word spread quickly, and soon enough, the street was filled with people. Some were die-hard fans who had followed Johnny and Keanu for years. Others were curious passers-by who couldn't resist the chance to be part of something special. The bar, once the center of attention, suddenly felt like an afterthought. Its sleek exterior and glowing neon sign were no match for the infectious energy of Johnny and Keanu's street party. The bouncers, who had been so strict earlier, now stood awkwardly at the door, unsure of how to handle the situation. Johnny and Keanu didn't just play music. They created an experience. They interacted with the crowd, sharing stories, jokes, and even a few dance moves. Johnny, with his trademark charm, made everyone feel like they were part of the show. Keanu, ever the humble star, took the time to shake hands, sign autographs, and thank people for coming. At one point, Johnny handed his guitar to a fan and encouraged him to play a song. The crowd cheered as the fan, nervous but excited, strummed a few chords. Keanu, always the encourager, gave them a thumbs up and joined in with harmonies. It was a moment of pure connection, a reminder that music and laughter have the power to bring people together. As the night went on, the party grew bigger and louder. Paparazzi, drawn by the commotion, started to arrive, their cameras flashing as they captured the scene. Social media lit up with posts and photos, and soon enough, hashtag Johnny and Keanu Party was trending. The bar, which had prided itself on being exclusive, was now overshadowed by the very people it had turned away. The impact of Johnny and Keanu's revenge was undeniable. The bar, once a symbol of exclusivity and status, suddenly felt irrelevant. Its velvet ropes and strict dress code couldn't compete with the joy and camaraderie of the street party. People who had once dreamed of getting into the bar now realized they didn't need it. They had something better, a genuine, heartfelt experience with two of the most beloved stars in the world. But the real beauty of the night wasn't just about the bar losing its exclusivity. It was about the message Johnny and Keanu sent. They didn't need a fancy venue or a VIP list to have a good time. All they needed was each other, their fans, and a shared belief in the power of kindness and humor. As the party continued, the bar staff couldn't help but watch from a distance. Some looked annoyed, others amused, but all of them were clearly caught off guard. The bouncer who had turned Johnny and Keanu away earlier stood silently, his arms crossed, as if trying to process what was happening. Johnny, ever the showman, noticed the bouncer and gave him a playful wink. "Thanks for the inspiration, mate," he said with a grin. The crowd erupted in laughter, and even Keanu couldn't help but smile. It was a moment of light-hearted humor, a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is served with a smile. The night wasn't just about getting even. It was about creating something amazing. Johnny and Keanu didn't just throw a party. They created a memory, a story that will be told for years to come. It was a reminder that fame and fortune don't define a person. It's how you treat others and how you handle adversity that truly matters. As the music played and the crowd sang along, Johnny and Keanu knew they had done something special. They had turned a frustrating night into a celebration of friendship, music, and the power of kindness. And as they looked out at the smiling faces around them, they realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above and creating something unforgettable. The bar staff had no idea what was coming. When Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves were turned away earlier that night, they likely thought the incident was over. But as the sound of music and laughter filled the street outside, it became clear that something extraordinary was happening. The bar, once the epitome of exclusivity and sophistication, was now overshadowed by the very people it had rejected. The staff watched in stunned silence as the crowd grew. The bouncer who had turned Johnny and Keanu away stood awkwardly at the door, his arms crossed, his expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. He had expected the two stars to simply walk away, maybe even complain to the media. But this was something he hadn't anticipated. Inside the bar, the atmosphere was tense. The bartenders, who had been busy mixing drinks for the elite clientele, now found themselves with little to do. The patrons, drawn by the commotion outside, started to leave their tables and head for the door. Some even joined the street party, leaving their expensive cocktails behind. The bar's manager, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to regain control. "We need to do something," he said to the staff, his voice tinged with panic. But what could they do? Johnny and Keanu weren't causing trouble. They weren't breaking any laws. They were simply having a good time and inviting everyone else to join them. As the night went on, the bar's exclusivity began to crumble. The velvet ropes and strict dress code, once symbols of status and privilege, now felt outdated and unnecessary. The staff couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. They had turned away two of the most beloved stars in the world, and in doing so, they had missed out on an opportunity to be part of something special. But while the bar staff was left to deal with the fallout, Johnny and Keanu were focused on something far more important: their fans. Instead of holding a grudge or seeking revenge, they turned the situation into a celebration of the people who had supported them throughout their careers. The street party was a testament to their character. Johnny, with his infectious energy and love for music, kept the crowd entertained with his guitar and stories. Keanu, ever the humble and kind-hearted star, took the time to connect with everyone who approached him. They posed for photos, signed autographs, and even shared a few laughs with fans who couldn't believe their luck. At one point, a young fan approached Keanu, visibly nervous. "Can I get a picture with you?" she asked, her voice trembling. Keanu, without hesitation, put an arm around her and smiled. "Of course," he said. "Thank you for coming." The fan's face lit up, and as she walked away, she turned to her friends and said, "I can't believe this is happening." Johnny, meanwhile, was in his element. He played song after song, his raspy voice filling the air as the crowd sang along. At one point, he even handed his guitar to a fan and encouraged him to play. "Come on, give it a go," he said with a grin. The fan, nervous but excited, strummed a few chords and the crowd erupted in cheers. The positive energy was contagious. People who had never met before were now laughing and dancing together, united by the shared experience of being part of something extraordinary. It was a reminder that At its core, life is about connection and community, not exclusivity or status. As the night wore on, the bar staff couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for Johnny and Keanu. Despite being turned away earlier, they hadn't held a grudge. Instead, they had chosen to rise above the situation and create something amazing. It was a lesson in humility, kindness, and the power of turning a negative into a positive. The bar's manager, watching from the doorway, finally understood what had happened. He realized that Johnny and Keanu weren't just throwing a party. They were making a statement. They were showing the world that fame and fortune don't define a person. What truly matters is how you treat others and how you handle adversity. By the end of the night, the street outside the bar was filled with smiling faces and happy memories. The bar, once the center of attention, was now just a backdrop to the real story. Two of Hollywood's biggest stars staying true to themselves and creating a moment that would be remembered for years to come. The aftermath of that night wasn't just about the bar losing its exclusivity. It was about the impact Johnny and Keanu had on everyone who was there. They reminded people that kindness, humility, and a sense of humor can go a long way. They showed that even in the face of rejection, it's possible to rise above and create something unforgettable. And as the crowd slowly dispersed, the bar staff was left with newfound respect for the two stars they had turned away. They realized that Johnny and Keanu weren't just celebrities. They were genuine, down-to-earth people who care about their fans and knew how to make the best of a bad situation. The story of that night isn't just about revenge. It's about character. It's about how two of Hollywood's biggest stars stayed true to themselves and turned a frustrating experience into a celebration of friendship, music, and the power of kindness. Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves proved that even when faced with rejection, they could turn it into something unforgettable. What started as a frustrating night at an exclusive bar ended with a street party that brought people together, created lasting memories, and reminded everyone why these two stars are so beloved. Their story isn't just about revenge. It's about character. It's about how they stayed true to themselves, even in the face of adversity. Instead of holding a grudge or seeking to embarrass the bar, they chose to rise above the situation and create something amazing. They showed the world that kindness, humility, and a sense of humor can turn even the most negative experiences into something positive. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above, staying true to who you are, and creating something that inspires others. Johnny and Keanu didn't just throw a party. They gave us a lesson in how to handle life's challenges with grace and style. So, what do you think of their revenge? Was it the perfect way to handle the situation? Or would you have done something different? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you're new here, welcome to Story Spot. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on more incredible stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.